All right, I think we're ready. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the MoldPress class. I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm really excited about this class. The MoldPress from We Are Memory Keepers is a revolutionary tool. It hit the craft world by storm. We announced it last January at the Creativation Trade Show in Phoenix, and it won the Best New Product Award. So we're really grateful for that and proud of that. And we are so excited that this is now available at Michael's, and we're grateful for our partnership with Michael's. They're terrific, and we know you guys are going to love this tool. So what we like to call it is kind of like the Swiss Army knife of the craft world, because it applies to almost any craft that you might want to do. So if you're a paper crafter, you can make shaker cards with the plastic molds. Let's see if I can grab one here. So you can make a shaker card with just with the plastic mold. If you like to make soap or candles, you can use that for the molds. If you're into resin crafts, you can use the molds for that. If you're into cement or plaster or clay work, you can use the molds for that. I just made like a Rice Krispie treat the other day and molded it in one of the plastic molds. So there are so many, chocolate, candy. I mean, there's so many different applications. So I'm really excited to show you how this tool can especially benefit your gift making for the holidays. Handmade, I think, is the way to go. I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of scaling back a little bit this year, and I'm going handmade. And so this is honestly a great investment if you're going to want to make gifts for the holidays. Definitely worth it. Let me show you what we're going to be making. Let's see if we can jump to the overhead real quick so that we can see these little projects. So this is mint soap. We're going to make scented and colored soap and use a Christmas mold for that. So that'll be fun. And then we're going to make an ornament out of resin and glitter and some mica powder to give it a pretty color. So that's going to be fun. You can use that to decorate for the holidays. And then we're going to make this gift. This is a beautiful cement pendant. Cement jewelry is really popular right now. You'll see it all over online. It's a nice modern sleek look. It's kind of earthy a little bit and kind of chunky, which is really popular. So this makes a great gift even for like a hostess for the holidays, like for Thanksgiving or fall, or, you know, I'm wearing my own right now. So, you know, make it for yourself if you want. So, all right. So anyway, let's see. So let me talk about a couple of the accessories that you can buy separately. So this, let's go back to the front shot if we can. So this is a package of extra plastic. So your kit comes with 4 pieces of plastic to kind of get you started, but you're definitely going to want to grab some extra plastic so you can keep making those molds. There's also mold release. Let me see if I can reach that. This is the mold release. It's the liquid one. It also comes in powder form. If you're going to do resin crafts, you'll need the liquid also for cement crafts as well. So that's a good thing to get as well. There are also a lot of other accessories which you can find on the Michael's website or in the store to help you with your creating, but those are the ones we're going to focus on today. So I think we're ready to get started. Let me just peek at my notes, make sure. Yep, went through everything there. Okay. So when you start with the mold press, you need to plug it in, turn it on, push the power button, sorry, which is over here on this side, and that needs to heat up for at least 10 minutes. Otherwise, it's not going to be at full heat, full power, and your plastic is going to have issues when it's softening. So make sure to heat it up for 10 minutes. I've already had this heating up before class started, so it is ready to go. Now, the mold press comes with this magnetic frame. And this is where you're going to put your plastic. So let me get this opened up. And I'm going to grab this plastic. And this plastic is PETG plastic. It comes in, I think they're about 6x6 sheets. And it's got 2 protective films, one on each side, just to keep it from getting scratched up. So I'm going to remove those. And then it's going to be ready to go. Now, PETG plastic is a number 7 recyclable. So you can totally recycle these, and most projects with the mold press you can reuse. your plastic mold over and over again, which is fantastic. I love it. Plus, you're often repurposing items that you already have in your home, which is a great way to go for sure. So we're going to slide that in until it magnetizes up into the top of the machine. So it's close to the heating element up here, and that is going to soften the plastic. Now for this particular project, we're going to use a cookie cutter. Guys, cookie cutters, let's go to the overhead if we can for just a minute. So cookie cutters are a great item to use for making molds because they come in all kinds of different shapes. They're thick enough that they make a great mold, and you can fill them in with the polymer clay that we offer. That's available at Michael's, the polymer clay. So you just fill that in, kind of smooth it out with your finger, and that's going to make a solid shape. If you didn't do that and you tried to mold this, the plastic would suck down inside and you wouldn't have a nice solid 3D shape to make your project with. So I went ahead and filled this in on both sides. I did put a little piece of wax paper back here. That's not necessary because the polymer clay comes right off, but I like to just protect my surface a little bit from the oils of the polymer clay. So you can do that, but it's not necessary. That's just optional. So anyway, I'm going to continue to smooth this out a little bit because this is what the bottom of the mold is going to look like. We want that to be nice and smooth. I'm sure there are some tools, some clay working tools out there that would help, to smooth this out, but my finger is working just fine. So we'll do that. And then let's go back to the front on shot if we can, so we can see how I load this into the machine. So here's your work surface right here. This is 5.5 by 5.5 inches. So just so you know how large you can go. And we recommend not using an item that's taller than 2 inches. And there's measurements down here on these posts, so you can see when you put your item in if it's the right size, which is super handy. So this is, I don't know, probably 3/4 of an inch. So we're good to go. Now, one thing to note is when you're molding items, the thicker items, like closer to an inch, your softening time, is going to be a little bit longer. And what you're looking for is you're looking for the plastic to droop down. And on the top of the post up here, there's another set of measurements that show you up to 1 inch. You want your plastic to droop down until it hits that 1 inch mark. That generally takes about 2 to 3 minutes. It depends, but if you are working with thinner items, so items that are maybe less than 1/2 inch, your warming time is going to be shorter. So you're going to just want to do about 1.5 minutes, and that's it. And then you'll get the best results when you go to mold the item that you're molding if it's thinner. So let me take a look. That looks like it's ready to go. So what you're going to do is you're going to hook a vacuum into the back here. Here's a port back here. And it's a round port. So if you have a vacuum, pardon me as I reach over here, that is not a round port, then it's not going to work. But we do have an attachment that comes with the kit that allows you to fit almost any kind of, round vacuum. Most of them, like 90% of them are round, so you should be good. So I've got my vacuum attached in there. I'm just going to turn it on. And after I turn it on, I'm going to put this frame down, and it's got guides on it, so it goes down just the right way and allow that plastic to suck onto my object. All right, then I'm going to turn off the vacuum and I'm going to pull out my frame and take off the top. And I've got a plastic mold. Let me pull this cookie cutter out and you can see I've got a plastic mold. Let's do the overhead if we can so you can see the plastic mold. So there's my mold. And now what we're going to do, let's see, is we're going to melt and we're ready to melt the soap. So I've used a goat's milk soap base, and this is meltable. I've got, gosh, I don't know how many ounces, and it's going to depend on what you're molding, but I've got enough in here. So I'm going to microwave that according to the directions and heat that up for 30 seconds. Let's see. Sorry, this is my, the microwave my husband uses at work. So I'm not used to it. All right, so what we're going to do is, let me get this MoldPress out of the way for just a second. Sorry, I've got cords back here. Okay. Let's get that out of the way there. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to add some colorant. And when you're using colorant for soap, you need to make sure that it specifically mentions that it's for soap, because there are colorants out there, like for candles and other things, that are not made for your skin. So just be sure you get soap colorant. And we're going to use some essential mint oil, which you can also find at Michael's. There's all kinds of scents there for soap as well. Make sure you use something that's all natural. So then we're going to give this a stir. It looks like it needs just maybe 10 or 15 more seconds to get rid of a couple little chunks in there. So let me do 10 more seconds. Now this soap base, your work time is pretty short, so you kind of want to have everything ready to go beforehand. So you can just get it going quick. All right. And this soap honestly has a really nice scent to it. So you don't need to necessarily add scent, but since this is Christmas, of course we have to add some mint. All right, so we're going to stir that up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the scent to the whole thing. Just need a few drops. And that'll be good. Stir that up. And then I'm going to divide it, because half of it's going to be white and half of it's going to be green. So I'm just going to pour about half into this little bowl. And we're going to turn that half green. Stir that up. Let's see, I had another spoon. There it is. Okay. All right, now we're going to pour in the white first into the mold. Whoops, there's my pouring. Fill it maybe about halfway. And then we're going to go for the green. And just kind of add that on top and kind of swirl it around a little bit. It's already starting to cool, so you can kind of feel it thickening. All right. Now, what you can do is just take a little stir stick and kind of swirl that around and give it like a really cool pattern. And I would scrape across the bottom of the mold for sure, because that's where you're going to see the swirling action the best. All right, so let's move that out of the way. And I will set that aside to cool. And then you can pop it out. Let me show you one that I've already finished previously. And I'll show you what it looks like. So it just give it like a little tap and kind of shake it, and it just comes right out. And look at that. How cute is that? And it smells so good. Oh my gosh, it smells like Christmas. I absolutely love it. And one tip is that if you notice little imperfections along the sides, a craft knife is the perfect way to just kind of carve those away to get it nice and smooth on the edges if you have any issues. But that makes a beautiful gift. Goat's milk soap is my favorite. So go ahead and, like I said, make some for you, make some for your friends to give away. All right, so that is project number 1. I'm going to clear some space here, and then we'll get started on project number 2, which is going to be really fun. I love resin crafts. Again, that's kind of taken over the craft world, and it's a lot of fun. So let's get this machine back over here so you can see. And again, this is what we're going to do. Cute little snowflake. And let me show you what I'm going to mold. I'm going to pull out all my supplies here. I've got this little cart here that's got everything on it. And I'm just using, oh yeah, go for it, yeah.
We have a question. Are the molds reusable?
For some projects, yes. For most projects, yes. So for the soap, you can absolutely reuse that. Honestly, used that same Christmas mold to make a Rice Krispie treat. I already mentioned that. I made a candle and I made some soap. So you can reuse that. I've used them like 6 or 7 times to make chocolate, candles, you know, soap. I mean, it just goes on and on. So most of it you can reuse. The only one that I know of that you can't reuse, generally speaking, is the resin crafts, because resin, the material, and you know, when it cures and hardens, it's not flexible at all. And so you kind of need to twist and turn and, you know, work that mold to get it out. And so I have not been able to reuse a resin mold, but that's the only one so far. So all right, so this is what we're going to do. This is just a chipboard Christmas ornament, and I wanted to make a resin version of this. So let's see. First, we're going to grab the plastic, and I've already removed the protective sheets from this one, and we're going to place it in, down so I can get my other hand in there, place it in our frame. Now, since this is a thin object, this is less than ½ an inch, I'm going to only let my plastic heat for 1 minute and 30 seconds. And I'm going to use this microwave timer just to make sure that I'm right on target with the 1 minute 30, because that is going to get you the best results. All right, we're going to slide this in and hit start. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the items we're going to use to make this while we're waiting. Now at Michael's, we have the Spin It collection, which is for tumbler making, but these items are also great for all kinds of other crafts. So this is some of our new glitter. It's a glitter mix, and it's called Fairy Dust. And this is great for like winter and for the holidays. It's really beautiful with chunky and fine and medium glitter and different, you know, iridescent different colors all mixed in. This is our mica powder. We have several different sets in beautiful colors. This is kind of, to me, like a wintry pastel set, so I wanted to use the white. And these are kind of pearlescent, iridescent, beautiful colors. So we're going to use the white and we're going to use the glitter to make this. Now, you're always going to want to, when you're working with resin crafts, you're going to want to have gloves. Let me see where I put my gloves. There they are. And you're going to want to work, you're going to want to work in a well-ventilated area because resin, you know, has a smell to it, but it's perfectly safe just as long as you take those safety precautions. So let's see how much time we have. We have about 10 seconds left. And oh, let me just mention, for this craft and for the cement necklace, it might be handy to either have a mason drill bit or a bead reamer kit. All right, we're ready to go. I'm gonna put this here. I'm gonna stop that. All right, and then turn this on and we're gonna go for it. Okay, now let's talk about this for just a second. This is another handy accessory to have, is a heat gun, because with smaller, thinner items, let's get the front on. Are we on the front on? Perfect. Okay. Sometimes the details need a little extra time. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to turn my heat gun on and turn the vacuum back on. And I'm going to just give it a little shot of heat while the vacuum is sucking to get those details just perfect. So you don't want to get it too close. I would say maybe at least 2 inches away so you don't melt the plastic. But you'll be able to see when it kind of suctions down and those details get really nicely finished. So I'm going to turn my vacuum on and do that. All right, so I'm just going to kind of go around the edges to re-soften that plastic. And while the vacuum is on, that's going to just suction that on a little tighter, give you a little more detail in your design. So if you have something a little more intricate there, you probably can't see, but it's suctioning down a little more and just kind of tightening up around that snowflake design. And we do have a set of heat resistant gloves available at Michael's that you can get if you would like to use those while you're kind of perfecting your plastic mold. I find that I'm good without it. I just use my heat gun to do the work. And let me get this side over here. Yeah, there we go. You can see it like suction down and get all the details. All right, just about ready. Just about ready. Okay, goodness. All right. Okay, so let's take this out. And when I use the heat gun, I like to let it sit for just a minute, because the heat gun, you're using it for quite a long time and it's getting pretty hot. And I don't want to take the risk of warping the plastic. I also want to make sure it's good and cool to the touch before I get it out, so that I'm not twisting or warping the plastic. So let's see if we can pop that out. There we go. There we go. Look at that. How cool is that? So we've got a snowflake, right? We can use that for chocolate, for candy, for whatever. We're going to use it for resin. So let's move again this machine out of the way. I'm going to turn it off because we are done making molds. Even though we have one more project, I'm not going to show you how to make that mold because I've already showed you everything you need to know to be successful. And just FYI, I don't see any here, but as you're creating these molds, and anyone who's worked with a vacuum form machine before knows this, a certain amount of what we call webbing is possible and definitely natural. That will happen especially if you overheat the plastic. So I would definitely err on the side of underheating the plastic. Because if you overheat it, you're more likely to get the webbing. And sometimes the webbing will be up here, and it won't affect your design. Sometimes it'll end up going across your design, and then that'll affect your mold. But the trick is the timing. The timing is super important. And if you let that plastic go for too long, that's when you have problems with the webbing. So just keep that in mind. But this is a beautiful, clear mold right here because we were really precise with our timing. All right, resin time, you guys. So fun. So I'm working with Alumilite resin, which is available at Michael's. It comes in two parts. If you've never worked with resin before, you've got part A and part B. And one is your resin, the other one's your hardener. Sorry, one's your epoxy and the other one's your hardener. And you're gonna, again, wanna use gloves. You can use, protect your work surface, protect your clothing, all that stuff. So we really don't need very much, and it's really easy to mix. You just do one part of A and one, equal parts A and B is what I'm trying to say. So I just use these little paper cups, and what I do is they have this design that has a white bottom, and so I just fill it up right to there, both of them, A and B. So I know I've got the exact same amount. So we're just gonna fill that in. Oh, that's why. There we go. Okay. Fill that in until I reach the top of that little white part on the bottom. And then we'll pour the A part. And this is clear resin. Resin also comes colored. You can get different colors, but I like the clear because then you can add fun mix-ins and glitter, and you can swirl it, do all kinds of cool stuff with it. So we're using clear resin today. Almost there. All right, that looks about right. Okay, move these to the side, and we're going to use just some wooden sticks to stir. So what you're going to do is you're going to add the part A to the part B, and I wonder if I should, I'm going to add them both to this clear cup because I think you'll be able to see better how this works. So I'm going to take the part B and put that in the clear cup, and you're going to scrape really well, get as much as you possibly can out of there so that you're not messing with your measurements, and getting it as accurate as possible. All right. So there's my A, and here comes my B. We're going to mix that right in. And again, just going to use my stick and scrape as much as I possibly can. And you know, you're going to follow your manufacturer instructions for the time because you're going to need to stir for most likely 2 to 3 minutes. And the trick is, this is kind of my trick that I always watch for, is as you're stirring, you're going to watch to see it turn from cloudy to clear. So we're going to go ahead and stir, and you don't want to stir really fast because you want to try to avoid getting air bubbles. There are going to be a few in there, but the faster you stir, the more you're going to get. So just kind of stir gently, and I hopefully you can see if I can raise this up, that it's a little bit cloudy in there. And so once it goes from cloudy to clear, then you should be ready. Another trick is that the thickness will change, the consistency will get thinner because what you're doing here is a chemical reaction. So the two chemicals are reacting to each other, and it produces kind of some heat and energy, and you can kind of feel that. And you'll notice that the mixture gets thinner and a little more pliable, and that's because of the reaction. So we'll just continue to stir. And if you guys have any questions, now is probably a good time to answer any. Are there any questions, Madeline?
Yes. The first is, could you use a mold release for the resin?
Yes, you do need to use the mold release for the resin. And I actually have one that I've already painted the mold release on, and I'll go over that before we pour it into the mold, because that's really important for the resin, because otherwise it'll bond to the plastic and you won't be able to get it out. So good question.
Okay, and next is the powder mold release food safe?
Oh gosh, I might have to ask you to help me out on that one.
It is not. I just didn't know. It's not safe.
Okay, that's good to know. So I guess they're probably asking for candy, for like hard candy or something like that. But yeah, it's not food safe. It's meant for, other items like plaster or clay or things like that. So, so if you're doing, sorry, go ahead.
They just recommend that you clean the molds thoroughly.
Okay.
After using the powder mold piece, and then it should be okay.
Okay. So if you're doing food crafts, my favorite way to do that is with just cooking spray. I just use the cooking spray, and whatever you put in there will pop right out. So, but we don't recommend using it for candy that has a really high temperature. That's so if that's what you were wondering, then that may not work. But food crafting that's like lower temperatures, like the chocolate or the Rice Krispie treats, things like that, candy melts, that'll work. All right, I think we're pretty much ready here.
And just to get you thinking, Allie,
yes,
everyone's wondering what you use the mold release powder for.
It would be used for like clay. It would be, I think, probably the most common use for clay, for probably plaster as well. I haven't done plaster yet. I've done the cement, and I used the liquid mold release for that. But I would suspect that the powder would also work for cement. So any kind of clay or cement work that you're doing would work for the powder. All right, so let me grab.
Thank you.
Yeah, my mold. Hold on, sorry. I think I buried it. Okay. Oh, there we go. Mold release. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I actually ended up using my mold release, my mold that I had painted mold release in overnight. So what I'm going to do is show you how this works. So this is a thin liquid. You're going to want to have your hands covered with gloves when you use this, and have it in a well-ventilated area. And you're just going to paint it on with a paintbrush, and it dries pretty quickly. And we recommend doing multiple coats. I would do 3 or 4 coats, do a coat, allow it to dry, then do another one, etc. And you're going to want to use that paintbrush so you can get into all the corners and nooks and crannies to make sure that it's fully covered to get the easiest possible release for your resin. So we're just going to go ahead and paint around. I'm going to just do 1 layer so we don't take the time to do multiple and allow it to dry. But when you do it, I definitely recommend doing 3 or 4 different coats, and we'll let them dry for probably 15 minutes in between, again, because it dries pretty quickly. So all right, that looks pretty good. Just make sure you get all the sides and the bottom. All right, put that down. All right, so we've got our resin. We're going to let that dry while we're putting in the color and the sparkle. So this mica powder comes with a cute little spoon. You really don't need much. A little goes a long way. So I'm just going to get a little bit on the end there and tap that in. And then we'll stir that up. So we're going to do that first, and then we'll add the glitter. I recommend doing them separately, not adding them at the same time, because you'll get a better mix this way. So you can kind of see how that's kind of pearlized, kind of iridescent. It's really pretty. It's going to add a really cool look to your snowflake ornament. Very wintry and holiday look. All right, so that's nice and mixed in there. And then we're going to grab some of this glitter. The thing I love about this glitter is it's high quality polyester glitter. And this is the first bulk offering of glitter at craft stores. We're happy to partner with Michaels for that. And so there are all kinds of colors and different sizes of glitter available at Michaels from We Are Member Keepers. Look how pretty that is. Oh my goodness. I love the shine and the iridescence. So we're going to mix that up, and then we're ready to pour that into the mold. Make sure we get the sides. Okay, so when we do this, we're just going to do a little bit at a time. Just do it real carefully and kind of move it along through the mold. And if you get some excess, which I just did on the side, you have about 40-45 minutes to work with this resin before it starts to cure. So we have plenty of time to get in there and clean it up, which is nice. So we're just going to keep adding a little bit to each part of the snowflake. And again, you don't need a ton with this. A little goes a long way. Let me get this one more time. And this one needs a bit more. All right, so now you can kind of use your stir stick to kind of get that into the different parts of the mold. And then another thing that I recommend doing is when you've added enough, let's get this over here. Let me wipe this off with a paper towel, is I recommend just kind of tapping it down on your work surface so that you get everything nice and even and flat. There we go. All right, let me get that up before it dries. Okay, so I just go like this a couple times, kind of tap it down so it flattens out. And then here's a really important trick is to get rid of those air bubbles that I mentioned so that you have a really nice smooth cure. You're going to use a heat gun again and just give it a quick shot, probably like less than a minute, maybe 30-20 seconds. And don't get it, I would say no more than 6 inches away. I'm sorry, no less than 6 inches away. Otherwise you'll cause some problems, but you'll see those little bubbles come to the surface and pop, and that'll just make it your cure a lot smoother. So just gonna kind of move it around. And I'm sure it's hard for you to see, but I can see those little bubbles popping as they rise to the surface. That's just going to kind of clean up the resin so it looks nice and smooth. And we're good. And again, we don't need to do that for very long, but it's just a good tip to improve the look of your resin. So we're going to slide that over there, let that dry. That needs to cure overnight, 24 hours for a full cure. And then you can take it out of the mold. And again, you're going to probably need to twist and kind of warp and, you know, move that mold around to get it out. But look how beautiful that is. And I added some metallic thread and a little bow at the top, and you can hang that on your tree. All right, so that's project number 2. Let's see where we're at with time. Okay, perfect. All right, we're ready to go on to project number 3, which is cement. And again, cement crafts are another thing that's pretty hot in the craft world. Let me clear a little space here so we can get to work on that. And jewelry making is a lot of fun. I don't know if any of you have done that, but it's something that I've dabbled in and I've really enjoyed. It's been a lot of fun. So I generally use beads or make pendants that way, but I have never done plaster before or cement before until now. So I'm really excited to show you what I've learned. So let me grab.
Allie, can we ask a couple questions?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Would a small squeeze bottle work to add the resin to the mold?
You could do that. You probably would lose the squeeze bottle because the resin is going, unless it's silicone, because the resin is going to bond with the plastic. So if it's something that you're comfortable losing after you use it, then that would work just fine.
Okay.
So silicone, just real quick, sorry, that's a good question, because silicone does not bond with resin. So a silicone is a great work surface to protect your area. If you have a stir stick that's silicone, that's great. Little cups that are silicone, your resin won't stick and you can reuse those. So.
And how long does it take for the resin to set before removing it from the mold? I think you mentioned this. But.
Yeah, so I would let it go for 24 hours. It's harder to get out if you don't let it fully cure. So I would let it go for the full 24 hours or whatever your resin, your manufacturer instructions are for your resin for the full cure. You want to wait for the full cure to be able to get that out. So
wonderful. Thanks, Allie.
All right. Okay, so I've got everything out except now I just realized that I forgot to fill my cup with water ahead of time because you got to mix your plaster with water. So if you'll give me a hot second, I'm going to just run to my bathroom and get a little bit of water. Sorry, guys. Be right back. Okay. All right. So let's get started. So I've already made this mold. And let me tell you what I made this mold out of. This I'm kind of excited about. So my daughter is turning 11 next week or 2 weeks. And we have this tangram math, game kind of thing that we use to help her learn math. She has grown out of it, obviously. And before we got rid of it, I looked at it and I was like, oh my goodness, those would make perfect pendants for necklaces. So I saved them so I could use them for the mold press. And so that's something you can kind of do as you're looking through, your items that you're getting rid of, and think about, can I mold that? One of the projects that our in-house design team made was using like a vintage drawer knob that was just beautifully decorated, beautiful shape. And she molded that and made chocolates out of it, and they're absolutely gorgeous. So think about what you've got, and can I use that for a mold, because it's a great way to repurpose. So that's what I did. I had my husband drill holes in them ahead of time, and then I use them for the MoldPress. So let me lift this up so you can see. Oh, I lost my AirPod. There we go. So you can kind of see what that looks like. Now, the holes are not going to go all the way through, but the purpose of those was to mark where I need to drill with my mason bit so I can make the holes after the fact. So that's what I did there. Now you'll see here, here's a little bit of webbing. And this was because these are really thin, but the webbing doesn't go down into the mold. It's just on the surface. So the 1.5 minute trick worked really well for this one. All right, let's mix the cement. So the cement that I used is an outdoor cement available at Michael's. And so I used the outdoor because I wanted to be able to, that way you don't have to waterproof it. You know, you can wear it outside. You don't have to worry about it causing any problems. So we're going to use about 1/4 cup of plaster. Let's see, we're going to mix it in here. And again, you're going to want to use gloves when you do this. Some some cement, they recommend using a dust mask. It just depends on the brand. So then we're going to use the directions to, it tells you the ratio of how much water to how much cement powder, and we're going to use this stir stick. And so for most cement, I'm going to need some more. For most cement, the trick is to get it to about the consistency of the pancake mix. So that's kind of your goal, and you're going to want to really scrape, because once you add that liquid, it sort of wants to stay where it is. So make sure you scrape the sides and the bottom and get all of that moist. And I think I'm going to need to add a bit more cement mix for this. Added a bit too much water, so let me go back in and scoop a little bit. See what we can do here. And the trick is to get that consistency is to just do a little bit at a time. I think that's going to work. All right. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. So you're going to make sure that's nice and mixed up, that you don't have chunks. You don't want to have any chunks in there, but there's going to be some grain to it because it's a grainy material. All right. So once that's mixed up, again, I already went ahead beforehand and put the mold release on. I painted it on several coats, 3 or 4 coats. Actually, I think I did 4 for this one. And then we're just going to pour it in. One thing I wanted to point out too is with this particular project, it's important that the cement is, pretty level. So you're going to want to make sure that your plastic is pretty level, and you can kind of just bend it a little bit and make sure that it's laying nice and flat. So we'll go ahead and just add our cement. And I'm going to start with just a little bit, and then I'm going to kind of tap it like we did with the resin. And that's going to let me know how much more to put in, because you don't want to overdo it, because you'll turn out with some kind of edges that you don't want. So we've got a little bit in there. I'm going to tap, kind of put that just spread around. All right. Just a teeny bit more here. Some more here. And this cement is actually white cement, which I really like, but you can also use like traditional gray cement. So that's another option. I thought it would be really pretty with the rose gold paint that we were using. So that's what I went with. And again, we're just going to tap this out until it reaches through the entire shape. This is the one spot where we're going to need to move that cement. Okay. And again, we'll tap it one more time to get that nice and smooth. And then we set that aside to dry. So here's what they end up looking like when they come out. And then my husband took his mason drill bit and went in there. I think it was a 1/8 inch drill bit. And let me show you how I painted these. It's really easy. So let me wipe off this cement so we don't get that in the paint. Okay. So what I did is I used some washi tape. You can use, here, I need to take these gloves off. You can use painter's tape, you can use masking tape to tape off the area. And since I was going for a nice modern look, it's just clean, straight lines. Nothing fancy, but you could use a stencil if you want to, or you can freehand, you know, a pretty design on it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tape off the top third or so. And we're gonna paint the bottom third.
Allie, could you mix the cement with paint colors to have a marbled effect?
Oh, you know, I'm new enough to cement crafts that I am not sure. That is a good question. I would look to your cement manufacturer instructions for that kind of information, but that is a good question. I bet if you could, that would be really cool. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put this on here. Since it's glass, I'm working with a glass surface and I've got my paintbrush. I'm just gonna go ahead and add some paint. And I recommend doing probably 2 or 3 coats, you know, allow one coat, allow it to dry, go back and do it again. And here's what I did with the edges is I didn't want to go all the way over onto the back. So I just went along with my brush flat like that to get the edges. And just kind of ended the line right there instead of going across over to the back. You can paint both sides if you want. It's entirely up to you. So, and then I would let that dry for maybe 20 minutes and then I would go over it again. And before it dries, remove your washi tape or painter's tape. Otherwise, when you peel that off, you're gonna peel off some of the paint with it. So just be sure to peel that off. And then again, look how beautiful it ends up. You can use a jump ring here to attach the chains. This is actually some copper wire that I used because this is kind of a different shape here, but you can also use a jump ring. And you know, you'll use your manufacturer's instructions to allow that to cure for as long as it needs to. This one was a good 24 hours. I think it even like full cure is maybe a couple days. So, and then you can gift it or you can wear it like I'm wearing here. And it's really a cool look. So I think that's about it, unless we have any other questions that you guys might have.
Yes, can you just explain how you added the hole to your cement and resin projects?
Yeah, so what you'll need is you'll need either a mason drill bit or a diamond tipped drill bit. So Michael's has a bead reamer kit, a beading reamer kit. And so that is a drill tip that will go through stone, it'll go through glass beads, it'll go through, you know, cement. So that's the kind of drill bit that you'll need to go through through the materials that we use. Same with the resin, it'll go right through the resin. So we just used a mason drill bit to go through it, a 1/8 inch, and that was just fine for us. But that's how you can do it. I think there are a couple other options out there, but those are the ones that I prefer. So
perfect. And does the vacuum that you use with the mold press need to have a particularly strong suction, or can it just be a regular vacuum?
It's just a regular vacuum. I think this one, I want to say 12 amps, maybe. Does that sound right, Madeline? But it's just a standard vacuum. You don't need a ton of suction, just your regular vacuum works great.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all.
All right, that's it. Okay, well, thank you so much, you guys. I hope this has kind of given you a feel for the versatility of the mold press, the almost endless creative options. Again, like I said, great for gifting, especially this year as maybe some of us are kind of scaling back. Let's go handmade. That's the way to go. And like I said, you can reuse most of the molds for almost all projects. You can recycle them. And you can repurpose your household items. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Happy crafting.